If you're a bit unsure about the difference between an EOI application and a CV application, this is definitely the video for you. Hi everyone, welcome to Talk and Chalk. I'm Beck, I'm an assistant principal in Southwest Sydney. This is my YouTube channel where I share my tips and bits of advice around education and anything that I can do to support you guys in the classroom. This is my 16th year of teaching, and thank you to all the people that have been following me from the beginning. I've had lots of wonderful messages lately from people that have only just come across the channel and have been going back through some of the older videos, and today I am going to be referring back to some previous videos. So if you haven't seen those, I'll put them in the description down below along with all my links to social media so that you can watch those ones. I guess today I'm just going to be giving you my experiences, or my knowledge and experiences I've had from being on a panel, from attending panels, from doing writing workshops, and just from being part of that experience both as a teacher, as an executive, as someone who has worked with many people across different sectors going for different jobs. I have to say it's an absolute pleasure to get messages from people saying that they watched my previous videos on application writing, on interviews, and getting feedback and saying that they gained a lot from it. My favorite one, hands down, and I'm not going to mention the name, someone messaged me and said that they had written 94 job applications. I can't even comprehend that. 94 job applications and never got to interview. They watched my video, changed their application, and got to interview. And it was so cool to hear that what I did had at least helped someone, even in that little way. So thank you to the people that have messaged me and given me that kind of feedback, because this does take time and effort to make these videos. I do enjoy doing them, but it's so great to know that they're helpful. So let's get into it though. So the two main videos I guess I'm going to refer you back to is my job application one, which I'll link below, and also my interview one. And really that's just if you get to that section. So I'm going to kind of be a bit briefer in this one, focusing more on the EOI perspective. So the reason I'm making this video today is because a lot of people have been saying that they know exactly how to write a CV, an application, but they're really struggling to do an EOI. And the big challenge most people find, and for those of you that aren't in the public system or outside of New South Wales or outside of Australia, when I say EOI, I mean an expression of interest. I probably should have clarified that earlier. An expression of interest application is for a position that's not permanent. It's for a temporary period of time, and it can be anywhere from 6 months up to 3 years for an EOI. When you're putting in a CV application for merit selection, that is for a permanent position. However, the processes are very, very similar. So you still need to address criteria. The person advertising the job will list the different criteria that you need to address and preferably meet to actually get the position. And then you need to submit that formally in a document. Now, if it's for a merit selection permanent position, there is no limit on the amount that you can write. And when you watch my other video, you'll see my recommendation is 1 page per criteria. And that would be my recommendation, whether it's for a teacher job, for an assistant principal, deputy principal, principal, that still remains the same for me. Be clear and succinct, because the best advice I ever got was, if you can't say it in 3 points, then you're never going to say it at all. And sometimes I put 4, depending on how long the point is. The problem with an expression of interest is you will usually have, majority of the time, page limits. So regardless of how many criteria they're setting, they will give you a certain page limit. And I've done ones that have been a 2-page limit, and there have been other ones that have been a 6-page limit. And that's up to the discretion of the person submitting it. Some positions have a certain amount, but essentially if it's a position that's been created with a particular school, that's up to them, how many they want to set and what the criteria is that you want to set. If it was something for an instructional leader position, that criteria is the same. It's all the same regardless of which school you're at. That position criteria is still the same. Same as for an assistant principal. You've all got the same general selection criteria. It's the specific selection criteria that will change. So for an expression of interest, you really need to read that criteria. And again, I'm going to refer you back to my other video because I just give so much detail in that one about how you can find ways to address the criteria really, really well. And I talk about things like reading the school plan, looking at the school website, looking at their newsletters, looking at their annual school report, and just going into detail about how you use that language. So when you get to an EOI, you really need to refine it. Sometimes you'll only be able to do 1 or 2 dot points to address that criteria. Now, if you've already applied for positions before, whether it's successfully or unsuccessfully, you've probably already got a document sitting there that looks really good and it's ready to go and you just want to copy and paste. And that's fine. I've done that myself. The problem is that you're now going to have to refine it and you need to be really, really succinct. So when we do our applications for these, get rid of the philosophy statement. So if you've written your criteria, the next bit that you write underneath it is, your personal philosophy on how you would meet that criteria. And you'll see that in my other video where, you describe whether you're passionate or what your beliefs are about pedagogy. And then you'll talk about the dot points that show how you've met that criteria. Get rid of the philosophy statement. There's no room for it in this one. It's only an EOI. It's not expected. It's not needed. If you've got room for it, 1 sentence tops. Don't waste space on talking about your philosophy. They want to see impact. When it gets to EOI, they just need to know someone's going to come in and get the job done. Not a problem. When you're doing merit selection, they want to know someone's going to come in, get the job done, and then create quality change in their environment and make a substantial impact on their school. If someone's only coming in for 6 months, it's not so much the focus. So get rid of that philosophy statement if there's not enough room. I'm going to skip the criteria part now. Down the bottom, I always recommended you make a predictive statement that says, as assistant principal at blah blah school, I will. That can also really drop down 1 sentence. It's good to have it in there. Physically, it's good because it breaks up the segments of your, criteria. Just so it's easy to read on the page and it does not become a blur. It's a nice way to just get a text box with an outline on it. As assistant principal, I will. As deputy principal, I will. As instructional leader, I will. Whatever it is. As classroom teacher, I will. 1 sentence though. When we're talking about the criteria though, I'm going to flip the camera now and I'm going to show you the difference between a CV criteria point and then an EOI criteria point. I'm going to read through it so that you can see that it's exactly the same point talking about the exact same information, but I've just refined it and made it more succinct. So I'll flip the camera around now. These are the 2 different dot points. And at the top, this is one that I used for a CV application for merit selection. And this is one that was used for EOI. And you'll see it's the exact same point. I'll just get a bit closer. Successfully supported teachers to engage with learning and change dialogue using evidence and data to inform planning. And it's the same one down here. See? But it's the content that's different. And I'm just trying to focus the camera so you can read it. So at the top, you'll see, at Mary War Central School, I used my exemplary knowledge of differentiation to mentor teachers in using targeted and tiered intervention strategies by using end-of-year expectations to determine learning needs and identify at-risk students accordingly. And now down the bottom here, I used the exact same sentence. And then I said, this was a cultural shift at MCS and required teachers to track student development and engage in professional conversations every 5 weeks. Down here, I use the exact same sentence. Now, this is the nuts and bolts part though. This is where I start talking in detail about how that happened. So at the top, I've said I utilized the expertise of the learning and support teacher to provide quality in-class teacher support and guidance for students on Tier 3 intervention who required high levels of scaffolding and reinforcement. Down here, I've used that same sentence. And I've continued up here now. I supported teachers using evidence of consistent teacher judgment as a model for connecting assessment to learning and meaningful evidence to demonstrate valid student data. And that sentence is not in that bottom one there. That's where it had to go. And then I've changed the as a result section. So at the top, as a result, interventions were inclusive and based on student needs and school targets, while providing the experiences necessary to work towards individual education targets. Teachers saw modelling of high quality intervention practices in the classroom environment, specifically to meet the students' circumstances and capabilities. Parents were aware of consistency across classes and stages. So at the bottom here, you can see I've done pretty much the exact same sentence, and I've just taken out the part about parents. Every now and then you just take out things that, like words that help with it, and try and put things into acronyms where you can. So we don't like to talk in acronyms too much, but you kind of need to utilize that for an EOI just because of your limit, your page limit. This is the one time that you could, reduce your font size a little bit. I wouldn't go any smaller than 11. And still the same thing, don't take your margins out too wide. You still want that nice clean white border to make it easy to read in case they want to write notes on the side. This is what panels do. I've sat on panels for merit selection, classroom teacher, AP. I've sat on merit selection, EOI panels for classroom teacher and AP positions. And I've sat on in various capacities. I've been in there as the Fed rep, as the teacher rep, as the AP rep. So I've had to wear different hats every time I've gone in there, but these things remain consistent, is that if your application is not easy to read and easy to understand, it's automatically a no. If you make it hard for the panel to understand you, or if you think that they'll read between the lines, no. We want people that come out and say specifically, I did this, it was successful because, and this was the impact I created. It's crap because you feel like an idiot writing those applications. You really do. If you feel like you're sitting down and you sound like you're up yourself because you're making yourself sound so good, then you're on the right track. That's what you have to do, because anytime someone picks up that application, and this is the most frustrating thing, is that when you're on a panel and you know the people that are applying and they've put these things in that document and you think, they do so much more than that. They do heaps more than that. Why aren't they putting it on paper? And it's because you just don't want to go through that process where you feel like an idiot writing that out. It feels stupid. It's a hard barrier to cross. You've really got to be self-reflective and own what you do and be proud of what you do and say that you're passionate about what you do. So you really need to put that in. So like I said, go back to that other video that I did, because that one just has lots and lots of detail about how you can do it, and it's got links to all the documentation and everything that will help you as well. Just when you get to this EOI part, it's really not that different. You've got to get out of that mindset that it's a whole other thing. It's just more succinct, more compact, and more to the point, and there's less of that philosophy stuff that's going on. Now, a lot of people say don't waste space on anything else. It depends on how much space you're using for that. So because you are limited, I still have a tiny little section at the top of my first page that says, my referees and my qualifications. Please put in there your approval to teach, your working with children's check number for departmental positions, obviously. And I would put in there as well any relevant experience or professional training that I couldn't mention elsewhere. So for example, I'm trying to think of something now, like L3 trained. I'd probably mention that in the criteria though, depending on what it was. But I'd put L3 trained, that would be in there, or 10 trained, or accelerated literacy trained, those things. Very small that I would put in there. And then I get into the criteria points. So don't worry too much about, how big your spacing and everything is. When it comes to an EOI, we as a panel know that you are limited for space and you need to pack everything in. Do not go down to size 8 font. It'll go in the no pile, I tell you, because fully, if it's that hard for someone to read it, they'll just be like, I can't engage in this document. I'm not going to read it. They'll go back later and try and read it, but really it's not the one I'm going to read first. I'm going to pick up the ones that are easy to read and easy to understand first, and I'll put them into my yes, no, maybe piles, and then I'll go back through the other ones. Please ask for feedback. Always ask for feedback. It's hard to listen to. I've done a video on that one as well. That's after feedback about not getting a job, but still, if you don't ask, you won't know. And one of the most frustrating things that has happened to me while helping people who have contacted me about helping them with their CV is I've picked it up and I've said, have you actually shown this to your referees? Have you shown this to your supervisor? Have they given you feedback? And a lot of them have said, oh no, I just sent it off. And it frustrates me because there is no way I will let someone in my supervision apply for something using a document that I haven't seen beforehand and thought was good. I will never let someone apply for a job with a document that I think would not successfully get them to interview. And it frustrates me that I'm sure there are executives out there that maybe aren't actively jumping on their team to show it to them beforehand. Some people just go ahead and do it anyway. So I know there's supervisors out there that say, show it to me first, and then someone else still does it. I'm not pigeonholing people, but there's been a lot that have contacted me and said, oh yeah, my supervisor said it was fine, when it wasn't. It really wasn't. Okay, that sounded really judgmental. I don't mean it to be. It's just frustrating to think there's people out there with great qualifications that aren't selling themselves on paper. And it's really weird because this is the only system I know where we have to write so much for a job application. So if you have sat through this whole video and you're in an independent system or interstate system or whatever, please feel free to contact me, email me with an example of what you got. I'm happy to look through it and give you feedback, and plenty of people that watch me and have done that, feel free to comment or let people know that yes, I do. I send you back information and feedback and spend time with you to try and help you as much as I can. I don't charge any money. I don't take money or anything like that. I'm not selling anything. I'm just doing this because I really want to make sure our system is great, because we just have so much capacity in our system to do wonderful things, and the whole point of this channel is just to help people. I'll leave it there though, because I've rambled on. So down the bottom, like I said, I'll link that other video about application writing. If you want to follow me on social media, all the links are below. I'm doing the Premier Sporting Challenge Teacher Challenge for the next 10 weeks, which starts tomorrow. So today I'm wearing my, pedometer to test it and make sure it works. I am on Team Dizdar, hashtag Team Dizdar. Get with it, support the team, because we're a great team. If you go on Twitter, you'll see all the different things on there, and professional learning that I've got coming up as well. I'm doing a guided reading PL. I'm going to Edutech. I'm presenting at the V conference if you haven't registered for that one. There's a science maths conference coming up later in the year. There's heaps going on. Please come up to me and say hello. I love meeting you and hearing all the wonderful things that you're doing. Please don't be too shy. I've had messages from people saying they're too shy and they don't want to come and say hello. Say hello. I'm just me. It's me. It's the same thing. It's me. Okay, I'll put my button down there, so if you haven't subscribed, you can hover over that to subscribe. I'll put my feedback video at the top there so that you can go down the bottom for that one and up the top for that one. See you later, guys.